Welcome to our virtual panel, Leading with Heritage, a Hispanic Leader's Journey in Project Management. So before we dive in, I have a few housekeeping notes. So this meeting will be recorded for those who cannot join us live. And please hold your questions until the discussion session, or feel free to type them in the chat. Remember to mute yourself unless speaking. And if possible, please turn on your video. We love seeing all your beautiful faces. And lastly, we provide a brief post-event survey. And I want to remind everyone that a PMI certified members will receive one free PDU along with one service learning hours for all students. So to begin, let's take a moment to reflect on how we learn. So there's an old Chinese saying that reading 10,000 books is not as good as traveling 10,000 miles. So in Hispanic culture, they often say, viajar es vivir. So excuse my pronunciation. I hope that was right. Which translates to traveling is living. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you all to share your preferred way of learning. Do you prefer reading or traveling? Or in another way, you could say like if you prefer visual learning or was it tactile learning? So please take a moment to think about that. I believe that reflecting on our learning preferences is definitely essential. I mean, personally, I believe that I find that both reading techniques definitely have, both like unique values. Like reading allows me to dive deep into like different perspectives and gain knowledge at my own pace without actually having to experience it myself. But like traveling like exposes me to like new cultures and just all the sensory aspects. So yeah, take a moment to reflect on that. Okay, so next I'd like you to consider this question. So in what ways has your cultural background impacted either your career path or your leadership perspective? So think about how your heritage has shaped you as a leader. Okay, next question is what unique challenges have you faced as a project leader in general, actually, not specifically Hispanic, but a project leader in general, and how did you overcome it?
I would argue that this question probably should be geared to anybody that is a minority, not necessarily just Hispanic, because we have many different people in this meeting. And then I'm very interested in hearing what Gabriel has to say as a Hispanic American as a project leader. Well, I guess I'll share my experience as a PM. You know, as a minority, there's this concept psychologists talk about, the insider-outsider paradigm, and what it means is that we share certain attributes, and it could be multiple, with those around us, and it is based on these commonalities that we consider them part of our group or our tribe. Race is actually one of the most strongest attributes that people view as part of one's group or not. As a minority growing up, I was largely viewed as the outsider, and that has grown, that has continued on throughout my professional career. And whether it's you know the, the the degree in which it has impacted me varies depending on various instances throughout, as I matriculate through my career. But I will say that it's made things generally harder. I've had to prove myself more, that I'm capable and deserving to take on the roles that I have.
Yeah, that's a great answer, honestly. And that honestly really relates to me because I also face those problems, coming as a minority, not specifically from a Hispanic background, but not an American background. So a lot of people, I was forced to work harder to prove myself as, you know, worthy of the opportunities that I want. And honestly, the positive thing that honestly came out of that was that it made me stronger, it made me work harder. And I think that is a good takeaway from honestly all of this. I would rather have to work hard than have everything given to me easily just because. So honestly, it was a challenge, but there are some good sides to it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jermaine and Sean. Those are both really, I think that also relates to like a lot of, different people, regardless of like like non-Americans living in America. I think like athletes, I know like I've been following the WNBA. That's my current um in like hobby or anyway thing right now. And there's a lot of like the challenges relate to them as well. Um yeah, so thank you guys for sharing. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so now let's explore some Latino leadership styles. So here are 10 principles of leadership that resonate within the Latino community. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but yeah. So, so which of these styles resonates with you the most? And so please think about this a little bit more um, as we continue the discussion.
Well, I do think that, being myself an immigrant, I can tell
Yeah.
you that, having this sort of moving from a different place to another and
Yeah.
being a transplant sort of allows you to sort of have more of a global vision, right? Like you're able to see
Yeah.
yourself outside of the environment and then inside of the
Mhm.
environment, which I think is great. And I think that in that process, you need to learn how to adapt to that new soil that you've been transplanted into.
Mhm.
And I think that that's part of the immigrant spirit as well, adapting and problem solving in the way and moving
Mhm.
ahead of in spite of challenges. And yeah, so adelante, which is kind of the translation will be moving forward, or let's go. I think that speaks to me.
Mhm. Okay. For me, I think the first one stands out a lot. I mean, they're all very like incredibly empowering, but I think the first one stands out the most to me. I think that building strong relationships is definitely very crucial in terms of like leadership, and trust is like the foundation for any kind of successful team. So that's for me. Do you want to elaborate on that, Jermaine? Would you like to?
Yeah, sure. So I said, I'll probably say this wrong, conciencia. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I said number two, if I probably said that wrong, is knowing oneself and personal awareness because being a leader means that you understand who you are so you know the right group that you want to influence. You want to influence everyone, but not everyone is going to support you. So you want to understand that you can't, not everyone's going to like you, and not everyone's going to like your ideas. So you're not like, I don't want to bend myself to make myself uncomfortable to please, others. I want people to like me for who I am and, follow my leadership because of who I am. So understanding that, being able to do that also is a big part of me as a leader because people not only just follow me, but they follow me because they agree with my personal ideas.
Anyone else?
I could also add, my thoughts. I think for me, anyways, as you say, Evelyn, a lot of the a lot of these principles of leadership are empowering or quite important. But for me, what resonates the most is number 3, destino, which the reason is that, continuing with what I said earlier about the insider outsider paradigm, as a leader, when you're in the position where you are empowered, and you are leading an organization or you're leading a group, they all have different attributes that, this is what we call the forming, norming, or forming, storming, norming type of stages. Part of that is creating what is otherwise discord or chaos among the different participants in the environment, and then aligning them so that they have a shared purpose, they have a shared value. Having that shared identity, that commonality, brings what would otherwise be outsiders, right, into this shared concept of everybody being this insider group. We are now one team. We now have trust in our leadership to help us go forward in whatever the mission is. And I've seen this time and time again in every aspect, every professional life that I've had, whether it's in government, in private sector, military, civilian life, having this shared commonality, saying, hey, we have this shared view, this shared sight picture, this shared purpose. It brings people together and it brings trust. So that's what really resonates to me.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're just gonna go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we jump to 7. But 1, 2, 3, 4, that's good answers. All right, so okay, so I'd like to encourage. Now, I'd like to encourage everyone to create an inspirational quote for the youth based on your experiences or beliefs about leadership. So we shared some iconic Hispanic leaders and the quotes today for us inspiration. So if you were asked to provide a quote on a life or a leadership principle, what would it look like? So take some time to think about that. Also can share like which one of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, yeah, 8 8 leaders is your favorite. Or like the quotes are your favorite.
I would honestly say with the first quote, like I read a lot, I didn't read the whole thing, but like as soon as I read that one, I was like, wait, that's definitely one that really resonated with me because I definitely coming from where as a teenager, honestly, a lot of the time, a lot of people have a hard time where they feel like asking for help is like a sign of weakness. And I go to a very competitive school, so academically, they want to be the best of each other, and everyone wants to be better. And when you find yourself in a place, I found myself personally in a place where I've actually ended up needing help and something that I was really good at, and I was just like, wait, what would this make me look like? What would people think of me? Would I be considered, weak or lacking of knowledge if I were to ask for help? Because honestly, I really struggle with this subject. And over the time, I just realized that everyone needs help. Like anyone that wants to be good at something is going to need help eventually. You're not too good to know more. It's always good to learn more. So now I just try to, understand that it's okay for me to need help. It's okay for others to need help. That doesn't show a sign of weakness, but it's showing strength. If you ask for help, you're being the bigger person and saying that, yes, I am in trouble, but I can do better. I know how to do better, which is by asking for help. So I really, really like that quote actually. And that was my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I was the same way. Like I looked at the first one and I was like, wow, like that. I resonate with that the most. Needing help is definitely one. I think like also like going slow with stuff as it says, like, what are you gonna do with all this life? Like, you have your entire life to do stuff. So if you need, time to just take a break or, just take a moment, not doing like work, I think that it's incredibly vital because you have so much time. And I know a lot of people will say like, oh, like I don't have enough time. There's always gonna be time. You know, it might not be the best time, but you have the time. So it's not gonna be the end of the world if you don't make an assignment or anything, but it's still incredibly vital for you to do it. All right. Any more thoughts?
I think that what is really important. I really like that you have Frida Kahlo here. uh, I do think that part of being a minority in the U.S., whether you are an American minority or you are an immigrant minority, in this case in the United States, I think that it's important to understand that our journey already comes with a lot of strength that we don't sometimes we don't even know of, and it's kind of a strength that comes out when we face challenges and when we face hard moments. And I think that's important to keep in mind. Like not only for project management, but like in general in any area of your life that you may face, that we're stronger than we think. And I think that going with that mindset and that growth mindset in any situation that you face is super, super important. It's going to give you confidence as well.
All right. I just thought of a quote. Oh, anyway, hopefully my AirPods didn't just die. But I just thought of a really important quote that so I'm just gonna take a few seconds because I want to get to you as soon as quick as possible. But I think, I mean, just in creating this quote in the first place is just a powerful exercise. I mean, I think it definitely forces you to reflect on your own life and see like what you would change as like in your youth. Maybe I'm still in my youth, but in my younger experiences, and use that to try to change the next kind of everyone else. And um, so personally, I've always believed that the quote success is not just about what you accomplish, but it's how you uplift others in a way. And I think that it's vital to inspire the next generation to like lead with empathy and like purpose. So I think that's one of the quotes that I've always stood by. Also that caused me to start this nonprofit. One of the reasons. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the good part. Okay, so now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Gabriel Alvaro. So he serves as a project manager for GovEx Academy at Johns Hopkins University. Mr. Alvaro.
Thanks, Evelyn, for that great introduction. I appreciate it. Management journey is completely non-linear. I did not plan to be a project manager at all. I do think that what these nonprofit PM Ready is doing is super important because it's introducing you early on to learning about skill set that's going to be not only helpful for your current career, but like for life in general. So I wish that I would have had that opportunity early on. But anyway, I digress. And to answer your question, I graduated college and I was completely lost, to be completely vulnerable and honest, and I didn't know what to do. So I started to travel. And as part of that traveling, I found myself in Ecuador, volunteering for a job that required me to project manage some small projects. As part of that, as part of that challenge, I found myself into an opportunity to actually lead a major project, which was leading an accreditation process for a university that serves underserved students, and that was something that honestly was completely out of my expertise. Now that I look back, that was completely out of my comfort zone, was something that I was not prepared for, but I was something that still I decided to take on and decided to sort of grow in the process of. It was a very challenging, a process that took me different attempts. That took me about 3 years to complete. And in each iteration that I did, I kind of learned a little bit more about what it meant to manage a process, what it meant to manage a project. Then, of course, I learned then, right, that it was not only a project. I realized that it was a portfolio. Then I realized that it was a portfolio with different programs. Then I realized that it was a portfolio with different projects. That's what I was working on. But again, it's not something that I studied first and then I learned, but rather that I found myself into. And that I actually like doing it, right? Like I could stay working long hours in it to make it work, and I wouldn't get bored. Like I wanted things to work, and I think that was a good signal. Uh, and then what happened after that is that I accumulated so many hours of experience in project management that I decided to pursue certifications in it, and then I used those hours and experience that I had to get a Scrum Master certification first, and then using that experience, uh, I went to work. I wanted to go back to work in the United States, and then leveraging actually that experience. Now that I have formalized my education better, I understood it better. I actually wanted to understand project management even more formally. So I started to think about, okay, I understand what is the Scrum process. I understand what agile methodologies are, but I didn't feel like I understood sort of the whole context of what project management was really about. So I bought this book that was like $8, and it's called, if you all have the chance to buy it, it's called project management for the unofficial project manager or something like that. I can share the later, specifically the book. I'm not sure if I have it here, but I always mention that that's been one of the best investments in my life, because it gave me a true understanding of what project management is, from now a different perspective that was not only agile, but now that it was more waterfall and that was more practical on how to get a project or an initiative completed from A to B, and take it to completion. And then I kind of had like all of this experience, all of this knowledge, this early certification as a Scrum Master. And then I started to apply to jobs in the United States, sent about 500 applications or so. And then I heard from like 3 organizations. So at the time, it was the Organization of American States, who was interested in Washington, D.C. Then it was Johns Hopkins University, and then there was another university in Miami that's called Miami-Dade College. Anyway, just to make it short, I completely failed the interview at Miami-Dade College. That didn't work. Then in the Organization of American States actually went through a restructuring, and they eliminated the job that I was applying to, that I made it to the final round. And then I was left with GovEx, and they sent me sort of this project to manage a project early on, and this was for a coordinator job. It was not yet a project management job. And sort of the challenge of the assignment for the job interview was to lead a project. So what I did is I completed that project using, of course, the knowledge that I had, but I kind of framed that using the framework that I had learned in this $7 book. And then it was very successful. I used the same that I learned there and my experience to pass the interview. And then I ended up with this coordinator job at at Hopkins. And then, of course, at Hopkins, with more experience, I became a PMP. I got involved in more complex projects that completely took me out of my comfort zone, that forced me to learn more advanced project management skills like risk management, estimation, data-driven project management, etc. And then, of course, like I've been progressing and growing to the extent that nowadays, I'm a project manager of GovEx Academy, one of the key units at Hopkins that's built in the School of Government. And we have an amazing portfolio that we are building. Uh, and and another thing that's been great is that all of that experience has not only been for my career, it's gone outside of my career as well, because that background has allowed me to this day to have built two businesses that are successfully running and that are profitable. And I attribute all of that to, of course, like my immigrant experience that kind of gives me this entrepreneurial spirit, but also to the skills given by the project management certification, which allows me to take something from beginning to end and stick through it and plan, execute, and adapt to it. So yeah, that's just a little bit to answer your question, Sean. In a summary.
Okay, I think Yan has a question next.
First, transition from an individual contributor to a project leader. What challenges did you find, and how did you, overcome those challenges? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yan. I mean, even to this day, I think that, as the project management field is a very interesting position because you are not a director in this case. Uh, and a lot of the times you have to lead with informal authority, right? So I do think that learning to lead with informal authority was one of the biggest challenges that I faced, but also it was one of the more rewarding uh, in my career so far. So it's kind of learning, for instance, how do you manage app? So how do you, like when you are working on a project, whether it is, you're initiating the project, or whether you're planning the project, or whether you're more in the operations part of it, executing it, or evaluating and helping adapt the project. I do think that knowing who the key stakeholders and key decision makers are for that project is extremely important. I do think that understanding their personalities, understanding the way that they prefer to communicate, understanding understanding their psychology is extremely important to be able to convey the message and to influence their perspective so that you can get buy-in to move your projects forward, right? I do think that personalizing your communication to each of these key stakeholders is extremely important. And then once you have the buy-in from key stakeholders, I think that is very, very important to have the buy-in from your team and from the people that you work with. And it's a similar approach. I think it's personalizing the communication to each of the different personalities that you have within your project. And I think that it's also getting to know the strengths and the weaknesses of your team, and then learning how to delegate based on those strengths and interests. And I think that that makes you really effective, because then you have buy-in from the top, which means that you have sort of the support for your project to keep moving, which gives you decision making authority. But also your team, you can keep your team aligned by understanding their needs and what they're good at. So I think that I wish early on I would have known that. I think that I would have avoided myself a lot of problems, and I would have done things in way shorter time. In summary, just by knowing who the key stakeholders were, learning how to communicate with them, and the second, knowing how to get to know my team and how to delegate based on those insights. So yeah, delegate and communicate, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. So could you describe, like, if possible, of course, like a typical day at your current job as a project manager at John Hopkins? I know it's relative day to day, but like typical.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, that's a good question. One of the things that I always recommend to any project manager is actually to structure their days. And to any teams that I work with, I tend to actually build a routine uh, for accountability purposes, but also to give us a structure that we can function and to move. So actually, I do have like a daily routine that I use to move my projects forward. So anyway, the big picture routine that I have is that, for instance, weekly, I have a planning meeting early on the week. And then I have a review or debrief meeting at the end of the week, right? For each of the projects that I have. This can happen, with different teams. This can happen, with different portfolios. So you can just duplicate that routine. But basically, it's like I will wake up early on. The first thing that I do is I read about project management, mainly because I also help people get the project management certification and to learn project management. So I try to be sort of always up to date to the latest methodologies, to the latest aspects of the field. And then I use those insights to write posts early on. So if you all have seen my profile, I'm always posting, I'm always commenting, always engaging with other project managers in the field. Then after I finish doing that which is around 7:30 a.m. or so, I go on to my desk, to my computer, and then I review the status of the different projects that I'm working in. So I do this by looking at dashboards that I have created for myself. So this is dashboards that basically summarize the key data points of my projects. So usually, what I'm looking at is that the projects are either on track, either are delayed, or either they have not been started. And then I also focus on the capacity of the team. So I start to see where the delegation of activities are, and I try to see who may be overloaded. And then I try to see in this dashboard any notes, any feedback that may have been left in the lessons learned log, uh, or any comments that we may have to improve on. And then once I have that, I set a list of priorities on, where I need to tackle stuff. So, let's say that a project is delayed, then I know that I need to prioritize that, right? I know that I need to do some communications. I need to send an email, or I need to meet with a team member to brainstorm how we can move that forward, how we can improve. And then, let's say that after that, another thing that I needed to do was to help a team member navigate an HR situation, because that is preventing that team member from actually, accessing the equipment that this person needs to conduct one of the activities of the project. So, I help this team member navigate that process to overcome that roadblock. So actually that can get to work and keep going. So every day is different in that sense. And that's why I think that adaptability is essential. But the first part is always the same. Look at the data, look what's happening. Based on that, I prioritize, my actions, and then I execute. Then that's sort of what's gonna happen every single day, right? Now, from those same points of data, on Monday, I'm gonna do my planning meeting, and we're gonna delegate what's gonna be done during the week. Throughout the week, I'm gonna execute the process that I just described. And at the end of the week, we're gonna meet together to be like, okay, so what did we say we're gonna do? What did we actually do, and why didn't we do the things that we said we couldn't do? And then after we have the conversation, then we usually go on talking about the process. Okay, so this week, what worked well, what didn't work well, and how can we improve, for the next week. And then we repeat the process. All of those are data points that, become our guiding light. And then, in the process of doing all of that, what you're going to find is dealing with human relations. And I think that that's one of the most difficult aspects of project management. It can be one of the most rewarding, but also one of the most frustrating if you don't know how to handle them. So it's also that it's dealing with a lot of human relations. It's also dealing with a lot of personalities, different ways of working, helping people solve different frustrations that you may have, that you may have, that they may have. um, so it's also a lot of that. And yeah, so that's a little bit how it looks like.
Yeah, that's great. I just have a follow-up question, but before I ask it, we're actually going a bit over time right now. So if anyone has like any like super last minute questions before I end off, just put them in the chat. And while I put the my slides up to finish it off, I would like to ask a follow-up question, and that is, would you recommend that we would like set like a like a morning routine and a night routine, or like kind of block of like of the day, like to 7 p.m. do this, 7 to 8 p.m. do that, or like just a morning routine and a night routine, and then like the middle of the day just like kind of like plan as you go through. What would you recommend?
Yeah, no, I think that it varies for every single team, and it's gonna depend a lot on like what the needs of your team are. But something that I really really like is to have time at the beginning of the week to plan and to delegate the activities that are going to be done during the week to move the project forward. I do think that every single day communication must be facilitated through in this case, through any sort of common chat platform that you may have. So in this case, at my work, we use Slack. For my businesses, we use WhatsApp groups, right? That are pretty good, so that everybody can have access to information and communicate. And you need to make sure that that platform and structure runs throughout the week. If you have time, daily stand up early in the morning to go through what people are working on, and if there are any challenges, is also recommended, but in my opinion not always needed. I think that open communication actually works better. And then what I do is, like, in the middle of the week, I have a little bit I block a little bit of time to actually add what I call like grooming the plan. So it's like, okay, I plan at the beginning of the week, in the middle of the week, this is what is actually happening. So I actually adjust the plan. So this can be on Wednesday, and we reassess from there. So we delegate new activities if needed, we readjust the delegation of activities if needed, we add more resources to where it may be delayed. And then at the end of the week, I think that a retrospective meeting, a project review meeting, where we actually, meet to see what we accomplish and what we learn, is super important, so that we can have all of those data points for Monday when we are going to plan again, to keep moving the project forward. I think that, that is a pretty helpful routine. If you all want to check routines that work, I do think that check agile methodologies. The Scrum methodology is pretty amazing, but then there's many other ways to do it, but it's gonna depend also on your team's needs and the time that you have.
All right, thank you so much, Gabriel, for that very insightful talk, let's say. Okay, so if anyone has any more questions, just put them in the chat, and I guess I can send it to you or something. But all right, so before we wrap up officially, I want to highlight some exciting upcoming events that we have planned. So, Project Management Core Concepts Made Simple on October 14th. We have a case study coming soon on November 3rd. We have a bunch of other stuff. I'm not gonna read everything for time's sake, but yeah, and then you can register for more PM Ready events or watch previous event recordings using that link. So lastly, thank you so much for joining us today. Your participation makes this discussion very meaningful, and this discussion was really successful. And I loved hearing everyone what I'm to say. And so before you leave, please take a moment to complete our survey. Doing so will earn you a service learning hour for students or for PMI, a one free PDU. Also, please consider joining our global ambassador team and participating in our online courses. We'd love for you to stay connected with us through our LinkedIn group and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more resources and updates. And we just created our Instagram account, pmready.i, so follow that as well. And all right, so have a wonderful day, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Have a great day, everyone.